Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please, welcome as you're joining. Please make sure that you like for the algorithm. Y'all know that's going to help boost everything that we have going on. It's going to help get as many people as possible in this room having these conversations. That's what we're here for, to engage, have good conversations, and grow. But to do so, we need to hear as many different people's perspectives as possible. Share with a friend. Share with a friend. So please make sure as you're joining that you like and that you share with a friend. I'm right into my group chat. Already posted on the gram, so we're good to go. Yesterday, we actually had an emergency show, so I'll tell you a little bit about that. But we're going to get into a little bit of everything today. Let me grab my coffee. Give people a few minutes to come in and join. What we got? We already got somebody in the chat. Let me take a look. Who beat me to the chat? Of course, big bro Doug beat me to the chat. Grand Rising, big bro. Grand Rising. We got a lot to discuss today. Let me pull up my notes. Refresh. Welcome. Hot Topic Friday. We are going to dive into a bunch of stuff today. We're going to talk about the Kamala interview, of course. We're going to talk about the responses to it. Got a couple interesting videos to show y'all. We're also going to look at a longer form video. Interesting conversation that a lady had with regarding the Democratic Party and black men being emasculated. So it'll be interesting to get that perspective. What else do we have? We're gonna have a little bit of conversation about inflation. Got a cool video to show y'all. And I got a couple other videos that may or may not make the cut. One is this Cam Newton video. I'm not sure if you saw Cam Newton's recent interview. Pretty interesting on low functional, high functional, low value, high value men and how that impacts relationships. So welcome. Yesterday we did the emergency show. So yesterday was cool. I got to tell y'all. Yesterday was cool because I learned something. Hold on. Which background do y'all like? Which color do y'all like? Do y'all like the red? But yesterday was cool because got to learn something and got to experience where there were like maybe 300 to 400 people watching the live chat yesterday that we did because we did it. We were showing the interview while also reacting to it. So showing the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz interview while also reacting to it. Had a bunch of ups and downs. I did not know that they were not allowing people to show it on their pages. So therefore, in the middle of it, it shut off a couple times. I had to log into my cable company, but we made it and we ended up with like a lot of views. And it was cool to have that many people on the chat. I think it went up to like I said, like 300 and some, high threes, 400. So that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool to experience. That was pretty cool to see. Ooh, I like the green. I like the green getting charged up a little bit. Uh, uh, we'll keep it here. We'll keep it here. We'll keep it here. So yeah, so let's get into some of these videos. Let me see what's the first one that we're going to look at. Let's review a little bit of yesterday. What did we see yesterday from the election? And then we got to start incorporating the sports back. Deion Sanders and them Colorado Boulders, they nearly escaped with a win against I wouldn't say a less than opponent, but which should be a less than opponent from a smaller school. But let's take a look at some of the take yesterday's debate, and then we will have some conversations about that. But then we'll move on throughout the topics. Hopefully, I won't keep y'all here too late today. But y'all know Fridays we can go a little bit longer, but we'll make sure that we're moving through this. We will make sure that we're moving through this. Let's take a look. Got the screen shared, everything queued up. Talk to us, CNN.
Dana Bash covered a lot of ground in this interview with Harris and her running mate, Governor Tim Walz. It was about 27 minutes long, and she dove right into one of the main criticisms that Harris has been facing ever since she got to the top of the ticket. How she explains her shifts, or as her critics would say, her flip-flops on some very key issues.
In 2019, I believe, at a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
This was a theme of this interview, if you want to call it an interview. Seemed pretty scripted, by the end of this debate, by the end of this conversation, this interview, I was just disappointed. It's pitiful how they keep such handcuffs on her, and to be totally honest, she just comes across like somebody who's not prepared or who wouldn't. I'm trying to be nice, but she's just not. She just doesn't seem too sharp. I'm gonna be totally honest. She doesn't seem too sharp. And even I spoke to a couple Democrats. I spoke to some of the gang members yesterday, the Democratic Party, and the real people were disappointed. It's like we expected her to go into a little bit more detail. We're waiting for an interview. This interview was not even live. It wasn't even live. We all know how Biden does his interviews, how he got called out for sending the scripts pretty much, or sending the pre-written questions before the interview, and they choose from them. It just seemed all scripted. It seemed so phony. I don't know, but let's keep going.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed. What I have seen is that we can grow and we can increase a thriving clean energy economy without banning fracking.
Just one other question about something that you said in 20.
Another example. So the reason why people are a little bit confused on the flip-flopping is because they don't know what we're going to get. She's flip-flopped on certain things, but that never goes into detail about explaining why, the reason for the flip. She just flip-flops. So I even believe that she flip-flopped on the immigration with the wall. I think that I clearly don't even understand. I mean, I honestly don't even understand where she stands on fracking. Like, it seems like she said, okay, like I have the same views that I had in 2020. It's funny how a lot of the same things that Donald Trump was saying, she's repeating. Now she's okay with fracking. Right after Donald Trump said that he wants to get rid of tips for service workers, she literally says the exact same thing. It's I don't know if it's telling. To everybody. I also want to ask, maybe even before we get into this a little bit more, does any of this matter? Does any of this matter? This is one of the main questions that I asked in the group chat yesterday. I said, does any of this matter? Or is it just to the point where the people that are into politics, I mean, that are already committed to a party, whether it's Democrats or Republican, are already sold on who they're voting for. Does it even matter? That was really, if could she have done, like, it's almost for all the voters that are not completely sold, or matter of fact, for everybody, is there anything that she could do if you're not currently supporting her? Is there anything that she could say in this interview, a particular way that she can conduct herself in this interview to where you would consider moving your support to her? And then on the other side, is there anything that if you're already supporting her that she could say or she could do to make you not vote for her? It seems like everybody's already set in their ways, but we'll have the combos anyway, right? We gotta at least comment and give our feedback.
19, when you first ran, there was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequence.
Generally,
So I guess we're going to get into the thing where it's like we'll answer questions without answering questions. And it's so funny because it's so funny because whenever I remember the last Donald Trump Biden debate where Biden didn't look too good. Everybody critiqued Donald Trump for the way that he was answering questions, not answering questions, all of this. Based on how she just answered the question, it would be safe to say that, yes, I changed my mind. I raised my hand and said that the border should be decriminalized. People coming in here should be decriminalized. Well, that's very convenient of you to change your mind now because you were the one responsible. You were the border czar, right? So you were the one that was your role, that you were supposed to take on the border issues. And now that things have spiraled completely out of control at the border and with this migrant crisis, now she's saying, oh, well, I believe that we have laws for a reason. Well, that was the whole point. But before, when y'all were running around pretty much giving people an open invite to come in through the country illegally, incentivizing people to try to make it through the country illegally, you were saying something else when it was convenient for you when you were running because that was the hot thing to do. Hey, decriminalize the border. It's like everybody did with the defund the police. It's like people aren't using sense. They're just getting on board with what everybody else does and pushing that. And then when it's no longer the hot thing to push, people just change their minds and never give it's like she doesn't feel that she owes us a direct response to it or some type of acknowledgement to say like, hey, yes, I thought this at this particular time. This is why I thought that. This is why I now think this way. It's none of that. It's none of that. And she seems like this interviewer, she seems like she just moved right on, like didn't even care. So that's why I said it just seems scripted. It seems scripted. And they said like, hey, try to act as if you're being tough on her when you're asking questions, but it's all going to be scripted and we're all going to play it out. So therefore, the next day and afterwards, people can't say that it was a softball interview. So try to be stern and direct. Don't try to be too friendly. But of course, we already have it scripted out anyway. We already know what you're going to ask. So therefore, we're good. That's what it came across to me as. Take a look, listen again how she answers this.
Thriving clean energy economy without
2019, when you first ran, there was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequence.
Generally speaking, how should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed.
I want to get in the room here to get some initial reactions with our.
What does that mean? The most important thing that people need to realize is that my values did not change. Kamala, we don't know what your values were then. We don't know what your values are now. That's the whole point of doing a bunch of interviews that are in depth instead of just surface level responses like the ones that you're giving here. What does that mean? You act as if you have a history like a Nelson Mandela or something of just showing great values throughout your entire life that people are well aware of through different experiences that have been shown to us. We don't know that. So for you to, the important thing for people to realize is that my values haven't changed. We don't know what your values are. We don't know what your values are. We know that you want to have a joy campaign, but we don't know what your values are. What do you stand on? Matter of fact, from a Democratic standpoint, what are your values? Because when RFK Jr. gets on stage and says, hey, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. The Democratic Party used to be the anti-establishment. It used to be the anti-war. It used to be not weaponizing, the government agencies. It used to be all these things that were supposed to be for the people. But nobody knows now. Now the Democratic Party, it seems like the only values are based on, well, what are the Republicans doing? How can we just criticize what they're doing and figure out a way to make what dream we create, what utopic way of life that we can create that will never come to fruition? How can we create that in people's minds? So therefore they'll always look at it like the grass being greener on the other side. Like, what are you talking about? What are your values? We don't know what your values are.
Our great panel, David Axelrod, let's start with you.
So I want y'all to take a look at this panel. Pay attention to this panel as we go forward. Pay attention to this panel. And all of this is going to connect, I promise. All of this is going to connect because later on we have a show later on we're going to review a video where a black lady is having a conversation with, I believe, some Democrats, and they ask about why, or they get on the topic of black men or moving away from the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party emasculates black men. At this table, it's supposed to be DEI, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, cool. At this table, CNN, I see 3 black women. I believe this is the guy Axelrod in the middle, white liberal guy. And then the guy with his back to us, white guy, who I believe if he's not a Republican, he's Republican leaning. He sounds Republican when he speaks to me. And then you have this other black man who, I don't want to judge anybody, but he comes across like a softer, less masculine black. How can I put it? A very safe black man for a CNN. Doesn't seem like the black man that's going to be challenging. I'm just being honest. Doesn't seem like the big sports guy. I'm just being honest. Not that matters, but what I'm trying to say is the representation that does matter. Isn't that what DEI is all about? Where's the white women? Where's the white women? I guess we don't need any DEI. It's okay. Let's just keep going. Like I said, I'm going to connect all these dots as we go on.
What did you make of how Vice President Harris did she meet the moment?
Yeah, I think she did what she needed to do. What she needed to do was be the same person that people have seen on the stage for the last month and have seen a new sense of sort of confidence, of calm and comfortable comfort that we haven't seen before from her. We didn't see certainly the last time she ran.
What is he talking about?
She was very connected to her words. She seemed strong. She seemed competent. She seemed like someone who could be president of the United States.
She seems strong, competent, like somebody could be president of the United States. Let me tell y'all, remember how we used to have to pre-K kindergarten, you go around, you're sitting in the circle and you go around and I want to be the president of the United States of America. Little kids, you can be the president of the United States of America. The bar is very low. The bar is very low. And this is what happens, little kids, when we have an amazing country, the greatest country in the world, and the people in it just vote for the lesser of two evils. It may be bad because we may not get to pick from the top candidates that should or qualify to lead our country. We may not get the best people to lead our country. Our country may suffer because we have this poor leadership, but at the end of the day, one thing good that it does is it lowers the bar. So anybody can be president. There's no bar. What is he talking about? She seems strong, competent, and somebody who can run the country. Like I said, even the Democrats that I spoke to after this were disappointed. But of course, these people that are just, funded and paid for by these larger corporations that tell them you have to represent this particular stance, they just go for it. Or their allegiance to their gang is so strong that they can't even be honest with us on TV. This should not be considered mainstream news media or bipartisan or non-biased journalism. It shouldn't be that. Just say that, we're CNN and we represent the Democrats. We're MSNBC and we represent the Democrats. That's what we're going to lean towards. Maybe MSNBC is a little bit more extreme, but we're still going to lean Democrat, but we'll be a little bit less extreme than MSNBC. Let's just be honest.
The first test. One thing, because I know we got a lot of opinions here.
We have time for yours, don't worry.
But I think well, two things then. I think that she handled the issue of her changes or perceived changes in policy pretty well. I mean, I think the idea that her values have been the same and have been consistent was a good bridge there. One thing that I want to note is we were asking the question earlier, how will she handle the president and will she separate herself from the president? Mm-hmm. And there might be some political logic to doing that. She's talking about turning the page. Does she want to be a continuation? That's what the Republicans will want to make her out to be. I'll give Scott the opportunity to do it in a second. But as she spoke, I thought it showed a certain character, the way she talked about Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. She didn't run away from him. She gave him, I think, his due. She understands that there's some political risk to that. That actually was elevating to me in a way that I hadn't expected. Mm-hmm. So I think on the whole, this was a good night. It wasn't a huge, I don't think she moved the ball that much forward, but she certainly didn't fall back.
The do no harm principle of politicking here,
Yeah,
Audie.
I mean, interviews, they can be combat, they can be a conversation. And what she needed to do was communicate. And so often in the past, she comes to an interview in a way prepared to be the interrogator. And people already know she's good at asking sharp, tough questions of people who she feels deserve scrutiny. It's her being under that scrutiny that has been where the stakes have been higher. And I think today it did show that she has the ability to sit down and have that back and forth that Republicans are talking about. Can she really do it? So how many?
It showed that she can have that back and forth in a scripted interview, what I believe was scripted, not even a live interview. I just don't understand. Let's keep going. We're not going to watch all 29 minutes of this. We'll watch a few more minutes and then I may jump to certain parts of it that I think I'd like us to respond
Many
to.
more times. I don't know how much that matters. And I do get a little nervous that in the media we're preoccupied with how much access, how many conversations is she going to have in the settings we deem most valuable to voters.
Did y'all just hear what she just said? Please listen to this again.
How many conversations is she said in the media we're preoccupied? I don't know how much that matters. And I do get a little nervous that in the media we're preoccupied with how much access, how many conversations is she going to have in the settings we deem most valuable to voters.
No, it's not the media asking for it. It's the people asking for it. The media, you're supposed to ask questions based on what the people are asking. You're supposed to ask questions to inform the people. You're a journalist, right? So if the people are saying, hey, we need to hear more from Kamala, regardless of what Kamala thinks, we need to hear more from it. We need to hear more from her. She has this interview. She has Tim Walz there like an emotional support animal. I have no idea what he was even there for. It seemed like he wasn't involved as much. Everything about that interview was just trying to let's script it out in this way to make them look heroic and it just, people can see through it, in my opinion. Do a bunch of different interviews, so therefore we're not just all, given one interview, so we don't have to judge it, so critique it with such a fine-tooth comb. We won't have to if you're speaking more, if you're sitting down with people that give you challenging questions rather than just going up there and just saying what you want to say, not getting into any depth, not getting into any detail, and not answering any questions from the media, not answering any questions from a tough interview that would dive deep into an area that you may not necessarily be totally prepared or know that it's coming, so we can see you answer on the fly and give a true, genuine response. What is wrong with that?
When this is a campaign that is actually making a mark in an interesting way, reaching out to people directly.
But Asad, you have also spent a couple of times now interviewing her. What did you make of how she handled it? I mean, to David's point, a little bit more comfortable now than she has been in the past.
Yeah, I think there's been a consistent story of growth. She's been in more of these settings. I think we saw that somewhat tonight. I also think to the question about how policy positions have changed.
All right, so I don't know if I'm being wrong when I say this, but as somebody, I don't know, am I being a hypocrite? I do not like identity politics. I do not like when you market to me based on my color. I don't like our vote being based on anything other than the policies and who we think is most qualified to lead this country. However, as I said before when they first showed the panel, I can't ignore the type of people that they are pushing. This is why I'm just giving y'all honest feedback. This is why Black men are leaving the Democratic Party. This is why Black men are seeing Trump as becoming more and more relatable. You have a panel of Black women, you got the conservative, the white liberal, you got the white conservative in there, just to throw it in there. And then you have Asted, who I have no ill feelings towards Asted. This is the first time that I'm seeing him, but I'm just being real. He comes across a little bit different than Donald Trump may come across, or some of our more masculine leaders. And I know we just know that there's an attack on masculinity, and it shows up in so many different ways. And symbolism and representation are some of the biggest ways what we see in the mainstream light. That's what is influencing us, regardless of whether we know it or not.
They were clearly ready with an answer about how the values have been consistent. For me, and one of the lines that stuck out was, "This is a new. We're ready for a new way forward." She said that a couple times. It goes to David's point. I don't think there's a policy separation that they've created with Biden. Obviously, she gave a kind of personal defense of him, but they're also very clearly trying to position her as a change candidate in the same way that Donald Trump is positioning himself as a change candidate. In some ways, it feels as if that's going to be the crux of what this comes down to in November, is whether that is bought by the electorate or not.
And interestingly, there is some polling to suggest that it's a battle right now. It's actually
grown in, and we're
going to move on. I'm going to fast forward.
Vision in her voice, and I think she made it very clear that she is still values.
Ashley.
So I think I would break this down into 3 parts: values, vision, and her voice. And I think she made it very clear that she is still committed to her values, to be an American, to be a prosecutor, even though.
Values, vision, and voice. We don't know what her values are. I don't give a damn about your vision if you don't talk to us about the things that you're going to do to implement and make that vision come to fruition. And what was the last thing that she said? She said values, vision, and hold on.
Committed to her values, to be an American, to be very clear that she is still committed to her values, vision, and her voice. And I think.
And her voice, what does that even mean? We don't know about her values. A vision, oh yeah, I got a vision too. I know a lot of people with great visions. But unless you have an actual plan to get there, who cares? And her voice, what does that even mean?
She made it very clear that she is still committed to her values, to be an American, to be a prosecutor, even though she may have changed on some positions, and she clearly outlined where she had changed. I think on the vision, she drew the.
No, she didn't.
She attempted to draw the contrast without talking about Donald Trump, but still being very clear and not berating her current boss, actually. And when you think about the opposite ticket of J.D. Vance, where Donald Trump's vice president isn't even on the ticket anymore, we don't need to go down why that is the case, but she was clearly able to draw her vision for how she wants to take the country forward with her opportunity economy, and then her voice. I think so many Americans want to know, who is she and does she have command of her voice? And she answered every question. Now, you might not like the way she answered them, but she answered them as a capable, qualified leader. And I do think she moved the ball forward a little bit. You know, maybe she didn't score a touchdown tonight, but she definitely moved down.
Yo, y'all ever had like a competition or a sports event where your mom comes in afterwards, or maybe your dad? But I think in most cases it's the mom, when, you know, the mom's just trying to make you feel better. It's like, oh, you had a great game. And you know you didn't play well. We know that if she had a great performance, a woman like we just heard speaking, that we're listening to right now, and the majority of this CNN panel would be ecstatic. They would be aggressively saying, like, this was a win. Kamala Harris is she's bringing the country forward. She's doing. And now you're saying, well, I think it was a little bit of a win. You know that didn't look good. You know that wasn't a good look. You know that did not meet expectations. I don't even know what the expectations are. Maybe the expectations are so low, but that did not give the American people anything. I'll give you an example. Hopefully, I'm not going to say who. So I spoke to somebody after the interview yesterday, and before that, a couple of days ago, they said, you know, moving forward, I'm just going to make sure that I have my notepad and I'm able to write down, you know, I'm going to, you know, have Kamala Harris over here, that team, and then Donald Trump over here, RFK, and everything that I hear from them, I'm going to write down and compare what do I think is best, and who I think is the best leader. They didn't have anything written down. And this person that I spoke to, she was excited to actually, she's only voted Democrat her entire life. And she was just so disappointed because she's like, yeah, there was really like no substance, it seemed. Like everything was just very surface level, lacked substance, lacked anything meaningful.
All right, Scott.
I agree with Ested about this idea of the question of who's going to change will be the fundamental defining question of the election. And I was sort of watching this, you know, holistically. What is she saying? What does she look like? What's on the screen? So at the beginning, when she's talking about Biden and their record, our screen said, this is called the Chiron, the headline at the bottom. It said, Harris stands by Biden administration economic record. She is making it clear that she will embrace and be a continuation of Biden's economic policy, his record, what they've done. She offered no remorse, no regrets, no introspection about anything they've done. She continued to blame inflation on this fantasy price gouging idea. She had no additional thoughts on the economic situation in the country or what they've done beyond just saying, Joe Biden and I have done a great job. Now, if I were the Trump people,
I don't know who Scott Jennings is, you know, what his background is. But every time, I'm glad that he is on CNN, because every time I hear him speak, it seems to be a little bit different than what everybody else is saying. He seems to bring a little bit less emotion, less symbolic, you know, talk, less pep talks, and just more straightforward, direct critique from a very logical perspective. I think that that's very good to have on a CNN panel. And I also think that he has a very level head in explaining a lot of these things, because to be totally honest, a lot of people on this panel, it would be very hard for me to just not sit there and be like, yo, what are y'all talking about?
I would be salivating over the idea that that's how they are going to run the race. I don't believe it's tenable. I also thought it was interesting that she didn't take any responsibility at the end for telling the American people that Joe Biden was fine and he was strong. I mean, we all know that's not true. That's why he's out of the race, and she's still standing by the idea that he was fine and he's strong and that he's fine today. Nobody believes that, and I just think at some point, then why isn't he running?
Because he's too old, point blank. Same reason my dog.
That may have been my favorite moment in all of this. She believes that Joe Biden is fine. So in the interview, they were asking Kamala Harris about pretty much saying like, yo, are you going to take any responsibility in you and the rest of your party acting as if for the last 3.5 years that there was no cognitive decline in Joe Biden? Even after the interview, you're still not going to acknowledge that there's been a cognitive decline? And what did this lady respond? It's embarrassing.
Not true. That's why he's out of the race, and she's still. Joe Biden was. It was interesting that she didn't take any responsibility at the end for telling the American people that Joe Biden was fine and he was strong. When we all know that's not true.
Does anybody listening here think that Joe Biden? This is the problem when you have just this allegiance to your party rather than just an allegiance to principles, honesty, truth, and integrity. She is just blatantly lying or just delusional. Either way, she's lying, but I'm just trying to figure out whether she actually believes it or not. Nobody believes that. There's no way that you can look at Joe Biden, listen to Joe Biden, and think like, hey, this guy is healthy, strong, he's good from a cognitive standpoint. There's no way, even from a physical standpoint.
True. That's why he's out of the race, and she's still standing by the idea that he was fine and he's strong and that he's fine today. Nobody believes that, and I just think at some point, then why isn't he running?
Because he's too old, point blank. Same reason why Donald Trump probably shouldn't be running, because he's too old and out of touch.
I think most Americans know the truth, and when you're running to be president and you're willing to look them in the face and...
I'm so glad that he said that. People like this lady right here are willing to do and say anything for their gang. This is why the Democrats use black women. I'm just going to be totally honest. I have to say it. This is why the Democrats use black women. They have created and molded black women in a lot of ways. And this may be a reach for some of y'all, what I'm getting ready to say. But when I say they have molded and created their best warriors, the Democratic Party, liberals, and black women, this is why you have the social programs that Lyndon B. Johnson put into play when he was in office, that takes the father out of the household, that takes the father out of the black household. This is what Biden created in his crime bill that he pushed out with a bunch of other people. When you give people harder sentences for a hard substance of version of cocaine compared to just the soft version of cocaine. When you take black men out of the household, black women develop a sense of resentment towards black men. And then what happens with anybody that has a certain resentment towards this group? They look for another group for some type of support. Not only has the Democrats given them that support, whether it comes to in the form of social programs, but also have given black women this empowerment to where it's like, hey, we're going to put you on a pedestal. You guys are going to run this thing. You guys are going to, because they've created this perfect soldier almost that will just put the blinders on and just, this is, what's the goal here? What are we promoting? What are we pushing? What is the agenda? Yes, I got it. I'm ready to go. This is why when Donald Trump went to interview or went to be interviewed by the National Association of Black Journalists, there were 3 black women on the stage and not 1 black man. This is why. Because we know that the black women, I'm just being totally honest, and even in the situation with Donald Trump, are going to aggressively take on whatever role these liberals and Democrats empower them and incentivize them to take on. This is why black men are leaving the Democratic Party. This is why strong black men with principles are leaving the Democratic Party.
And tell them something they know that is not true. It does speak a little bit to your character.
Scott, and curious what you think about this, Axe. Will voters care about that part of it, which is kind of backward looking, or do they care about what's next?
Well, I think the part of what Scott raised that could be problematical if they prosecute it properly is I think Biden deserves a lot more credit, frankly, for guiding the country through the pandemic and the economic calamity that he walked into than he gets. But inflation over a period of years has been a heavy toll on people here and around the world, but around the world is not relevant here. And so to the degree that they can say, she is going to continue doing exactly what Joe Biden was doing for people who don't have confidence in Biden's policies, that is a prospective problem. I don't think the thing about, this whole thing about, you didn't say it tonight, but you've said before, and I just disagree with this notion that, Dan actually asked a question, well,
we're probably going to watch maybe one more minute of this and then just move on. I've had my fill.
You've been there for 3.5 years. No vice president makes policy. Okay, let's just make that clear.
Well,
nobody has said this before. Nobody talks about the Pence years. Okay, nobody talks.
Yo, this is so bad. Like this is given like the second best player on the team. Oh, you didn't impact the game. What? No, it's not about the vice president it's about you having an influence in the policies. You are the number 2 to the president. Why is he giving her these excuses? Why? As if she's just, it's like whatever's convenient to argue at that particular time, what's best for the agenda that I'm pushing, the candidate that I'm supporting, this is what they do. If things were going amazingly well right now, you best believe Axelrod and everybody else was saying, hey, you got to give her some credit. She's the VP. She's number 2. You got to give her credit for the amazing economy that we have. You got to give her credit for saving inflation. You got to give her credit for going in and dealing with the border and successfully, solving that particular challenge. But it's only because things are not good and that she can't stand on certain things from the Biden-Harris administration that they do this. And what was I'll give you, I don't know when they recorded this interview. But the fact that nothing has been said, and a lot of these liberal stations, the way they're either presenting the situation with Mark Zuckerberg or in the case of MSNBC, they haven't even acknowledged it as of yesterday when I looked it up. Mark Zuckerberg came out and said that the Biden-Harris administration was censoring the American public, bullying Meta into censoring the American public about receiving information. Nothing has been said about this. Nothing. It's just, it's a crazy time that we're living in right now. It's crazy times that we're living in right now. And I think because there's so much hatred on both sides towards the other side, that it excuses the behavior that we're seeing right now. Like the bar can be lower when the two parties hate each other the most. But when the parties don't hate each other, then it forces the actual candidates, the politicians, to make more sense and to dive deeper into issues rather than what we're seeing right now.
Talks about the Biden years when Obama was, but nobody does that. So, but it is a challenge for her to take credit for the things that are good and to try and walk away from the things that are not.
But she did make policy, though. I mean, she said, I was the last person in the room on Afghanistan. And she cast many tie-breaking votes in the Senate.
That's different than saying that she made the decision.
Yeah.
She claimed to be his last and most principal advisor on Afghanistan. That is not.
That's
her word.
She said she was the last person in the room.
What does that mean to you?
She created the Afghanistan
It means that
policy.
she told him whatever she thought, and he did whatever he thought he wanted to do.
You know what's so funny? Hold up, I'm about to get y'all. She's the last person in the room. She's his second person, and they're acting as if, well, she didn't have anything to do with that. So let me ask you a question. When it comes to Project 2025 with Donald Trump, why is it that y'all act as if Donald Trump was in the room writing this entire project by himself? Donald Trump is not a contributor to Project 2025. But therefore, y'all, all of y'all liberals, y'all align Donald Trump with Project 2025 because people around him have contributed to it. But when it comes to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, and Kamala saying that she was the last person in the room before the decision of Joe Biden came out, and for them to act as if, oh, well, she had no input in that. It's crazy. You can, on your show, you can associate and try to scare people to death with Trump's association with Project 2025, even though he's acted as if, hey, look, like I didn't create that. But we say, no, the people that he worked with, they contributed to it. So that's Donald Trump's project. But you're giving the excuse of the vice president being in the last person in the room when a decision is getting ready to be made with Afghanistan, and they're giving her this out as if, hey, well, she's not the person that said what the decision was going to be, so therefore she has nothing to. What are we doing?
One of the things that struck me about, and as someone who, like Ested, has covered Kamala Harris before, she is a homework doer, and you can see the homework.
Yo, this is insane. She's a homework doer. I've heard from all different types of people, and I guess I haven't validated any of this thing, confirmed it. But I heard that Kamala does not. Matter of fact, let me not get into the gossip. What makes Abby say she's a homework doer? What are you talking about? This woman has been MIA her entire presidency. She was responsible for the border. There's that popular interview of her going back and forth. I believe the guy name is Lester. I forget, when he's asking her, like, hey, did you go to the border? Like, you are well, no. And she responds and says, well, I haven't been to Europe either. It's like, you're responsible for the border. There's a crisis at the border. And you're saying all this stuff about the border, but you haven't been there. But she's a homework doer. These people are insane.
Me about, and as someone who, like Ested, has covered Kamala Harris before, she is a homework doer. And you can see the homework has been done in this interview. And it
You can see the homework has been done in this interview. Is there anybody that walked away from that interview last night and said, Kamala looks like she did the homework? She's a homework doer. This is, I tell you what, man, hatred is a powerful thing. Hatred, I guess, is a much powerful thing. Hatred is a much stronger emotion than love, because people's hatred for Trump is just allowing. I just don't know what's going on. People hate Trump so much that they will just blatantly lie to us, give us these blank talking points. How do you think that, Abby? How do you? Let's actually move on to a couple other videos. I think we got enough of CNN on a Friday. All right, so I want to show y'all this other video. So one of the things that obviously we're going to talk about later, if we get to it, is a video that I was referencing earlier about how liberals, the relationship between liberals and Black Americans. And I want to show this video because I think what a lot of people, and this was sent to me by a white buddy of mine, a white friend of mine, my bro, he sent me this, and I'm going to tell you exactly, hold on. I'm going to read the exact text that he sent to me. And he comes from a family that traditionally votes Democrat. Just wanted to put that out there. So let me read to you what he sent to me. He sent me a video and wrote, I wish people saw how white liberals are the most racist people in the world. That's what he sent me a message. I wish people saw, this is a white person. I wish people saw how white liberals are the most racist people in the world. Let me show y'all something. This is what ends up happening. This is what I think of when I think of social programs, Lyndon B. Johnson, and how all of these programs and people doing black people favors and DEI and people getting opportunities not based on merits because y'all think that that's going to be the greatest thing for these people. And all it does is it cripples our community. It cripples our community. You want to offer so much help where it's like, yo, we're not even asking for that, bro. We're not asking for you to I'm out here fishing, trying to figure out how to fish, and you just come with your net and just grab a bunch of fish and give it to me. We're not asking for that. Just like a lot of these migrants that are coming in, getting all this money. A lot of them, from what I've heard, or I'm not going to say a lot of them, but I've heard multiple articles or multiple stories about, yo, we just want to work. Like, we don't want to y'all just hand us money. We want to work. Let's take a look at this video and y'all tell me how y'all feel about this. I thought this was one of the cool, like I actually played this video during one of the commercial breaks and people liked it yesterday. So hopefully y'all enjoy it too. All right, let's take a look at this.
Opinion on voter ID laws?
Yeah, they're usually pretty racist and they're bad.
For certain fees.
So hold on. He asked her, I just want to make sure y'all heard the question right, about how do you feel about voter ID laws?
An opinion on voter ID laws?
Yeah, they're usually pretty racist and they're bad. I think voter ID laws are a way to perpetuate racism.
Would you go as far as say those laws are racist?
For sure.
Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get IDs.
Hey, black people, y'all ain't got no IDs? Y'all don't know how to get to the DMV? I didn't know that black people didn't carry around IDs. I didn't know that was a thing.
You do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for?
And get identification.
You can always get IDs. You do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works.
A lot of people have smartphones, but you might not have data.
For most of the communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or they're not informed. I also think there's a repression of black voters.
Oh, hold on. Did we get a little bit of a, hold on one second. Sorry about that.
The communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or they're not informed. I also think there's a
Oh, wait, hold on. Let me do this. Let me turn off the Wi-Fi. We are already connected without the Wi-Fi, so we don't need that. All right, let me see if this, we need this video to start working. And even if you saw this video yesterday on our broadcast, we only showed a clip of it. So this is going to show the entire video. Let me back up and let her speak the entire time.
An internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works.
A lot of people have.
Yo, black people, y'all don't have the knowledge. I'm saying y'all, I got the knowledge. I don't know what y'all talking about. I can go online and figure something out. But I didn't know that black people didn't have the knowledge to go online and figure out how to order an ID. I didn't know that.
Smartphones, but you might not have data.
For most of the knowledge of how it works.
A lot of people have smartphones, but you might not have data.
For most of the communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or they're not informed. I also think there's a repression of black voters.
I don't know why it's skipping.
You're not allowed. How they repression of black voting with. How if you're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to vote and everything. And when you look at swing states like Florida, that's a huge population of the African Americans.
Yo, a huge population of the African community are felons. Did y'all know that?
You're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to black voting with. How if you're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to vote and everything. And when you look at swing states like Florida, that's a huge population of the African Americans.
Hold up. Yo. Yo, I'm gonna be honest, yo. I don't even blame white people for this. I don't blame any of those white people in that video for this. I don't blame any of them. This is what happens when you accept victimhood. When you accept being less than. When you keep complaining that the playing field's not fair, so we got to make just win. And then level it out. Oh, well, everything's got to be completely fair and even before we compete. So therefore, we're going to spend all of our time, effort, and energy on making the playing field fair rather than spending our time, energy, and effort on trying to win. Black people have become so soft. And I'll be totally honest, this is where the disconnect is between a lot of these elite black people, these black people that make good money, these black people that are on a lot of these news stations, Joy Reid. This is the difference in the disconnect between people. The black people that are diehard liberals and that are the type of people that go to the DNC, the type of people that acted like this is the thing. Hey, we all got to go to the DNC. Those type of people. There's a disconnect. You don't need to be looking at us as less than. You don't need to be looking at us like the lady talking about they may have phones but not have data. They may not know how to look up something on the internet. Oh, well, you also got to look at convicted felons because there's out of the population of black people in Florida, a lot of them are convicted felons. All right, so now let's look at the other side. Because if it's okay, this is like a classic situation of people telling us what we need rather than us saying like, well, actually, no, we kind of would like prefer this. Like we kind of prefer to actually learn how to do certain things rather than you just give us certain things that we don't necessarily earn or qualify for. Let's keep going.
I'm here in East Harlem to ask black people their thoughts on what you just heard. Do you have ID normally? You carry ID around?
Yes, I have state ID.
Do you carry ID?
Yes, I do.
Do you know any black person who doesn't carry ID?
No. Everyone that I know has an ID. Why would they think we don't have ID? That's a lie. Why would they say that?
Do you have ID?
Yes.
Because I have my ID and my friends have their ID, so like, we know what we need to carry around.
Everybody that I know have ID. Like, that's one of the things you need to walk around with New York with, an ID.
Do you know any black adult who does not have ID?
No, I don't.
Is it a weird thing to even say that?
Yes, it is.
What is this, some type of trick candy camera?
I know, right? That's the only thing I brought with me.
Those are legit IDs. I heard a lot also that black people can't figure out how to get to the DMV.
Really?
What does that say to you?
I know it's on 25th Street.
Do you know where the DMV is around you?
It's on 125th Street and 3rd Avenue, I believe.
You know how to get there?
Yeah.
Would you have a problem getting there if you had to get there?
No.
I know these sound like silly questions. You know how to get to the DMV?
Of course.
You know where it is?
Yes.
You can get there?
Uh-huh.
No problem.
No problem.
Just checking.
Okay.
And I also heard a lot that black people, especially poor black people, have no access to the internet, can't figure out how to use the internet.
That's just stupidity, honestly. Everybody has access to the internet. Even a little kid can figure out how to work the internet.
I had access to the internet for years.
You know how to use it properly, right?
Exactly. I do it at work. So, of course, I know how to use it. My kids know how to use it. They all have iPads, iPods, whatever.
Your phone has data?
Mm-hmm.
You can actually
Unlimited.
Unlimited. Stop playing with me.
My phone is a hotspot.
What does that say to you for the people who have this perception of black people?
They're pretty much ignorant. That's what my thought process on.
I just think that's ignorant. Ignorant.
Ignorant. That's the word I'm hearing a lot. Ignorant.
Very, very ignorant.
Does it sound racist for somebody to say that?
I think it is a little racist because, you know, you're putting people in a category and you have no idea what you're talking about.
Maybe a little bit of racist in it, but like I said, I think it's more stupidity and ignorance.
You're judging somebody, like, but you're judging them because they're black, saying that they don't got it.
What people are they talking to? Who are these people talking to?
Do you have a problem that if you go to vote and they say, can we please see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are? Are you
Love
cool?
showing my ID.
You got no problem with that?
Nope.
I'm going to tell you exactly who they're talking to. They're talking to these silly, low-level politicians, low-level journalists, black people that use their race, use their identity, use their race and gender to get into certain rooms and to be the pawns in pushing certain agendas that it helps a larger party. It helps a larger power. This is what happens. Black person wants to become a politician. What's the first thing that they're going? Yeah, well, I want to become a politician because I want to figure out, how to, fix the black neighborhood. It just is an easy thing for them to be. I don't know. I want to say responsible for, but it's an easy thing for them to lead with. I've been mistreated. I've been oppressed. So therefore, that's what. And it ends up turning into stuff like this. It ends up turning into stuff like this, where you have white people that literally look at us with almost like they pity us. I don't want your pity, bro. I don't need your pity.
Would you have a problem if when you go to vote, if they say, "Can we please just see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are"? Do you have an issue with that?
No.
Would you have a problem if there was a rule where you have to show your ID in order to vote?
I don't think so. No.
Would you have an issue if there was a rule saying you got to show your ID before you vote?
Nah.
You cool with that?
Yeah.
Nah. Yeah. Come on, man. All right. So clearly, I don't know. I thought that was a good video because I think that puts people, it just puts things into perspective, because once again, I don't think that those white people are intentionally being racist, intentionally being prejudiced in a way that they think that they're doing it because they're being mean. But that's what ends up happening when you constantly say that you're less than, and hey, we're oppressed, we're all this other stuff. That's how people are going to see it. That's how people are going to see it. These are the people that are voting. This is another reason why I don't know. Maybe that's why they're turned off by Donald Trump, and think he's such a racist, because he's more of a direct communicator, not going to pander to black people and say, "Oh, black people, you don't have internet. Like, oh my God, we need to help you out. You don't know how to use the internet. You don't know how to get to the DMV. Like, we feel so sorry for you." That's the type of energy. All right, so let's move on. I wanted to take a look at this video that I was referencing earlier. Let's take a look. Should already be queued up. 1 second. All right, so I'm going to show you this video. Should already be, and we are good. All right, so let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this.
Chattel slavery of my ancestors, and it was the Democrats that wanted to enslave us. I don't necessarily think parties have switched us.
Hey, hold up. I see a comment. I don't know if that's a rant. Never forget, brother. Well, too bad you take it and like it. Take it and like what? Let me know what you're referring to. Never forget, brother.
Switch places, as I hear all the time. I just think that both parties are captured by corporate interests. Mm-hmm. And that pains me greatly. Mm-hmm. And I wish that the American people had another choice. They don't have it yet, but I think they might have it one day.
So never forget wrote, "Take the pity." What pity is taken? What pity is taken? I accept no pity. Don't need your pity. Would have absolutely no problem competing against somebody like you, brother. Never forget, brother. Would have absolutely no problem. I'm a competitor. Don't need any pity. Don't need any pity, but that's a great example. It's a great example of exactly what we're referring. So definitely appreciate that comment. Never forget, brother. What are we never forgetting?
So no, I can't look at the Republicans, especially the federal ones, because they
What's your read on why so many black men, Hispanic voters have found in Trump something to admire, something even to vote for?
Madam Editor, I'm glad you asked me that question. For me, the Democratic Party emasculates black men. Wow. And I think Hispanic men probably feel the same way. And I say this because they weaponize identity. When and where we enter, who we are, how we identify is important to who we are, just like our fingerprints. But if you're not going to use my identity to advance a social justice cause, and you're just going to use my identity as a blunt force object, now I got a problem. And so what the Democratic Party does, they put black women on a pedestal and they say, we're the mothers of the movement, or we saved the party. But yet you don't put forth policies that save black babies. You don't put forth policies that deal with the maternal death rate of black women and black babies in the United States of America. You don't do those things that lift and edify. Yes, identity is important. Both parties use it differently. Republicans use it to say that everybody black or brown or of a mixed race is somehow kind of way a DEI hire. They use it to say certain books will be banned. Don't tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about how this country was formulated, because you might hurt a white child's feelings by saying that, yeah, chattel slavery existed, and oh, by the way, white powerful folks stole the land from the indigenous people. So all of those things, Chinese Exclusion Act, I mean, we can go down the list. But Democrats use it in a way that alienates other folks, and it offends me. So when I talk to black men across this country, they don't see themselves in this party. It's one thing to recognize the power and prowess of black women and the sacrifices that we make. It is another thing to put us above black men. The black struggle, black men and black women have to be together. We don't have the luxury to be separated, and so I resent the Democratic Party for doing that. And so black men do not see themselves in the party. That bravado, you know, because we got a kind of masculine energy, and masculine energy is not all bad, but the type of bravado that Trump puts forward is still very much rooted in a hierarchical patriarchy, and a lot of men gravitate to that.
That's something that we've spoken about before on the show. That's something that we spoke about before on the show, with how Trump handles a lot of his stuff. It's just appealing. It's just appealing compared to how we see black men and their representation by the Democrat Party. When we see the Democratic Party highlight black men, in my opinion, it's usually emasculated black men. It's the Van Jones crying on TV. Y'all know I always say that. It's just not a masculine figure that I would identify with or that I would feel inspired to follow. You get what I'm saying? As far as being a leader. It doesn't come across like the leadership that maybe I'm accustomed to following, so maybe that's the issue. It doesn't come across like the type of men when, you know, whether I was on the football field or whatever else, that I would be inspired to follow. It doesn't come across as far as the scholars that I've researched. Like, it doesn't, I grew up, y'all know, Malcolm X. We got the same birthday. I always had a strong affiliation with Malcolm X and just was inspired by him, how he carried himself. It doesn't come across like a masculine energy, the type of men that Democrats put out on the forefront. It always seems to come across like a man has to take a backseat role. I'll give you like a silly example. I wasn't even gonna say this, but I thought about it with Tim Walz. So this is a silly example. Remember that clip that they played where they were talking about Tim Walz and the type of tacos that he makes with Kamala? There was a clip that said there's a clip that Tim Walz and Kamala, he said, you know, I make white guy tacos, and Kamala said, what is that, mayonnaise and like tuna or something like that? And he said, nah, just beef and cheese, no seasoning. But then something as simple, I should have showed it to y'all, but I thought it was so petty. But then it came out, I don't know how this news station, I think it was Sky News, and they had their segment of lefties losing it, and they showed that Tim Walz actually won like a taco competition in which the taco making competition showed all his ingredients, showed the seasoning. So it's just one of those things. It's a silly example, but it's just one of those things where you feel that you have to downplay yourself, downplay your achievements, downplay your existence, downplay your role in order to help elevate another woman. You get what I'm saying? So that's what just seems to be happening. That's how we see it. It just is what it is. That's how we see it. Maybe we're looking at it the wrong way, but that's what it feels like. I do not feel like there is a place for me in the Democratic Party whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, so is it, I mean, you feel in a way it's tokenization in a way if they don't pay any attention to it, right? If it
the mic, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yes.
We're falling apart at the end of the night. But that's essentially.
That's exactly it.
Is it a thing that I've seen, a lot of people, and particularly certain kind of left-wing scholars say that, yeah, we've focused on identity for a long time, and it's been a lot of words at the expense of class. Class is an important element, and that is not something the Democratic Party wants to deal with. You said this about Bernie Sanders, and I talked to him about this before. Everyone knows that they thumbed the scale, to put it very mildly, in 2016.
They put bodies on the scale.
They put bodies on the scale, right? There's a follow-up question that I think everyone thinks that we presume that we know the answer to this. Why? Why is the Democratic Party, trying to box out somebody who's very popular? His policies.
They're talking
are
about Bernie
popular.
Sanders.
He's a very effective speaker. He has this kind of consistency that you don't have a conversation. Well, Kamala Harris said this in 2020. She says this now because this is the direction of the party. Why is the party afraid of somebody who could actually win? It's not like you're wasting time with somebody who can't win. I think Bernie Sanders could have won.
He could have beat Trump. I believe that. They're opposite ends of the spectrum. Trump is a faux populist. Senator Bernie Sanders is a real populist who really believes in the power of the people. I think they fear it because both political parties, private organizations, I want our viewers to understand this.
I want y'all to hear, some of the things that she mentions about Bernie, and then we're going to wrap it up because they're getting ready to talk. They're getting ready to go into the reparation talk. I'll make one comment on that, and then we'll move on. My fault. I wasn't keeping up with the chat. Never forget, brother wrote, "You'll take it and like it." Oh, all right. So he's trolling. You could tell he's a troll. By the way, hey, never forget, brother, when you say, well, too bad, T-O, that's like to a destination. It's supposed to be an extra O, I believe. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. All right, let's keep going.
Control our electoral system are captured. So you have corporate capture of both major parties. And so corporations don't want us to have health care for all. Corporations don't want us to drive down the cost of pharmaceutical drugs so that we can pay the same amount that our sisters and brothers in Canada, by way of example, pay. They don't want that. And so these corporations spend billions of collective dollars every single year to lobby members of the Congress and the people running for the presidency so that they can stay in control. It is very simple. Just follow the money. Follow who's donating the money, how much money they're donating, how these corporations are investing multi-millions of dollars that adds up to billions of dollars collectively to really bribery is legal in the United States of America.
All right, so I want to discuss that because it's funny to me that she's talking about Bernie Sanders, but actually, they did do this with Bernie. Bernie came out and said that they did this with him. So it's not, I shouldn't say that it's funny that she's talking about this with Bernie, but I almost would have loved for her to actually talk about RFK Jr. because in my opinion, RFK Jr. is more of a threat to the establishment, more of a threat to these big corporations than a Bernie Sanders. I think Bernie Sanders is still, go along, get along in a lot of ways. And I'm waiting for her to talk about the conversation with reparations, and then maybe we'll talk about
the reason why they didn't want somebody like Senator Bernard Sanders, because he really was going to do his best to put the power in the hands of the people and hold corporate interests responsible. We need real campaign finance reform in this country if we're ever going to get some of the nice things that people like myself and Senator Sanders and others were and still are fighting for.
There's been something, to go back to the uncommitted Gaza conversation, there's been something happening that it seems to me kind of like one of these social media phenomenon, but maybe has a deeper truth in it, where over the last couple weeks since Harris became the nominee, you've seen sort of Black influencers and activists and the pro-Palestine influencers and activists kind of, there's a split emerging to where you're seeing a lot of frustration that I think is pretty just on behalf of the Black activists who are saying, look, it's our time to think about our needs right now, which are extremely pressing, and then a lot of frustration by the Palestinian side of things, saying, well, how dare you abandon us in this moment, you know. I'm curious what you think about that, and that sort of whether there is a natural connection between the Black struggle here and, you know, whether that energy that's being expended on this issue in the Middle East is not taking away from more pressing issues here at home.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up.
I'm going to skip a little bit.
Free press right now.
Right?
Yes.
Because I want numerous. But what you cannot do, Arab Americans or any other group, is to tell Black people what we must do. That's where the Black sisters and brothers, because we see our liberation through them. I don't think any other group in this country can be liberated without full Black liberation.
So very quickly, just to give some context here, and maybe I should have gone back. My fault. I didn't mean to skip over that. But what she's discussing is the fact that Black people always seem to take on everybody else's fight. So they're talking about the situation between Gaza and Israel, Palestine and Israel, and she's a big supporter of Palestinians, but she was discussing how a lot of times the Palestinians even, or the Arabs, she had back and forth with them for saying that you should be, as a Black person, frontlining our fight. Maybe I should just go back. I'm sorry about that.
Just follow it. Economically, socially, politically. As Black people fight for liberation, every other group gets that same liberation. But the same love and respect is not given to Black people. You have groups of people, and I'm speaking very generally, so folks don't be adding free press and all of that. I am making a generic
they're
statement.
adding free press right now.
Right?
Yes.
Because I want to be clear that I am making a generic statement. That the same love and commitment to the struggle of Black Americans whose ancestors were chattel slaves on this land is not shown. Now, do we have some folks that stand by our side every now and then? Yeah, but I'm talking about deep-seated, we gonna be with our Black sisters and brothers because we see our liberation through them. I don't think any other group in this country can be liberated without full Black liberation. So Black people are offended. And when you have Arab Americans, some, who would, in my grandmother's words, fix their mouths to tell Black people that we need to be on the front line of their struggle, that is offensive. Now, there are a lot of Black people on the front line of the struggle. I'm one of them. Dr. Cornel West is another. They're numerous. But what you cannot do, Arab Americans or any other group, is to tell Black people what we must do. That's where the offense takes place. And to the extent, and there are some people who understand that. One of my dear friends, Rania Patrice, she understands that. But there are a lot of people, and I think others are making mischief. Some of these things might be bots.
So I just want to get to the reparation talk. So I just wanted y'all, I didn't want y'all to think that I was avoiding that convo.
For us. And what I say is that I am whose ancestors were chattel slaves.
Getting totally sidetracked. I feel like it's so much worse because I feel like...
In other words, Black Americans whose ancestors were chattel slaves. I think people take that for granted and they don't love Black people as much as we love humanity. It doesn't make us a perfect people, but Black people are usually on the front lines for most marginalized groups.
But I feel like it's so much worse because I feel like all these other marginalized groups steal valor from the ADOS community. Yeah. Like they use like the Americans descended from slaves and the Black struggle, whether it's, you know, and you see each group like coming up and saying, now it's our turn. And
what did we talk about after George Floyd? When they're writing Black Lives Matter on the street, but then it turned into Black queer lives matter, Black trans lives matter. And it turned into all these different things that it had nothing to do with George Floyd George Floyd's situation. It had nothing to do with it. But everybody hijacks Black movements. Every group hijacks, uses Black people, and we've been the fools that just allow ourselves to be used by everybody, but to get nothing in return. We get the least amount in return. We get the least amount. A lot of these other groups get reparations. A lot of these other groups get all these things. But when it comes to Blacks issues, it's not necessarily the same energy. And this is why I want her to talk about Bernie, because we know that Bernie responded regarding reparations.
The Democratic Party, I'm sorry, getting totally sidetracked by this stolen valor, and each time they move from one thing to the next,
agree.
and it's so frustrating.
And that's why I don't like that identity. I totally agree with you. Reparations. I want to hear the vice president. I wrote, Newsweek.
Yes.
My editor right here. We need a black agenda. And part of that black agenda is reparations. So definitely I'm miffed when President Obama, basically said, he's not the president for black people. I think Vice President Harris has been asked similar questions even before she started running for the presidency. You cannot, in the United States of America, say that you are for true freedom and liberation without recognizing the harm generationally, even to this day, that has been done to black descendants of enslaved people. Let me take Black Wall Street, for example. You both know there were 4 elders alive, all over the age of 100. 2 of them have died.
So this is regarding Tulsa, Oklahoma.
They went before Congress. All they got was pats on the back and atta girl, atta boy, and so sorry you went through that. Now,
So people that are not, let me give a little bit of context to this, because there's people that were survivors of the Tulsa, Oklahoma bombing when that Black Wall Street was destroyed. Now, what gets me is that, she supports Bernie. And the reason why I wanted to get to that point is because it's tough. It's tough because, even though you support a guy like Bernie, to me, the only person that was totally honest about reparations was RFK Jr. and saying like, hey, I just don't think that it's anything that would ever actually happen. I think that a lot of people that bring it up don't either understand or they're just using it to entice people with their vote. And he said he's not going to do that. He just doesn't see it as being something that could happen. So let's go and look at this. Hold on. I want y'all to see this video. I want y'all to listen to Bernie Sanders respond to this question about reparations. And I think that it's pretty funny because a lot of people think Bernie, is the super progressive. He's the guy that's for the people and all this other stuff. So let's take a look.
You're scared to say reparations because it seems like every time.
Ma'am, I don't think that's offensive.
So the question specifically, my black son. Okay, I know you're scared to say black. I know you're scared to say reparations because it seems like every time.
Ma'am, I don't think that's offensive.
I let you finish as well, but it seems like every time we talk about black people and us getting something for the systematic oppression and exploitation of our people, we have to include every other person of color. So today, can we please talk about specifically black people and reparations?
We can talk about what I just indicated, in my view, is that when you have, and you and I may have a disagreement on this, because it's not just black, it is Latino. There are areas in America, in poor rural areas, where it's whites, okay? So I believe that in a country which has more income and wealth inequality than any other country, that yeah, the time is long overdue to start investing in poor countries. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth, especially within the African American community. So what I've said black 50 times, all right? That's the 51st time, all right? But this is a national issue, all right? So what we want and what I believe we should do, all right, is to invest most heavily in those communities most in need. And when
So this is not the clip that I wanted to show. And I was just showing this on the fly. So let me see if this is the one. I'm looking for something very specific.
In a very significant way on distressed communities that have high levels of poverty. So as I've just indicated, I think we have to do everything that we can to end institutional racism in this country. It is not acceptable to me that the rate of childhood poverty among the African American community is over 30% in this country. That is beyond belief. That African Americans die from cancer at higher rates than whites. So we're going to do everything we can to put resources into distressed communities and improve lives for those people who have been hurt from the legacy of slavery.
So what is your position specifically on reparations? I asked the question because Elizabeth Warren, Julian Castro, they've indicated they want
what does
to
that
support.
mean? What do they mean? I'm not sure that anyone's very clear. What I've just said is that I think we must do everything that we can to address the massive level of disparity that exists in this country.
I'll tell you what they mean, because Elizabeth Warren has said black families have had a much steeper hill to climb. We need systematic structural changes to address that. Julian Castro has said, I have long thought that this country would be better off if we did find a way to do that, reparations.
Well, I agree with what Elizabeth said.
So you would support reparations?
But read what she said. What does that mean? She means, I think, I don't want to put words into her mouth, is what I said. Okay? In other words, as a result of the legacy of slavery, you have massive levels of inequality. It has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed now.
Many of you that have watched Charlie Brown,
So I can't find the exact video that I wanted to reference, but the only reason why I was showing it is because the lady, she was talking about reparations, and she was saying how she's a Bernie supporter, and Bernie made it very clear that he said that, you know, reparations would be divisive. And this is somebody I don't waste time on thinking about reparations or anything like that. I'll be totally honest. But for a guy like Bernie Sanders, who is Jewish, to understand that Jewish people receive reparations from America. Let me be very clear. Jewish people receive reparations from America, descendants of the Holocaust, descendants or people. I don't know the exact, qualifications, but I know that when Barack Obama was president, there was a good amount of reparations that were given. So it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, if something, not to say that Jewish people don't deserve reparations, but the argument would be if you believe that Jewish people deserve reparations, then why, and Bernie Sanders' exact words were that they would be too divisive. Why would it be too divisive for black people to receive reparations? Let me be very clear. I don't waste time fighting that battle because it goes back to what RFK said. I just don't think that it's something that actually people take seriously. Like, I don't think that it's ever going to happen. So I'd rather just, and even if it does happen, cool. But I just think that the best thing when it comes to black communities or any impoverished communities is to figure out a way to help people save themselves rather than to just try to throw money at a problem or throw whatever at a problem to where it's like a social program to where you're not preparing people. You can give people as much stimulus as you want, reparations, but if people that receive the money are not changing their mindset, then all that's going to happen, totally honest, is that money, you're going to give them the money on Friday, and by Monday, all that money has been spent on businesses that are probably not within the black community. Let's just be totally honest. So that was just one of those things that was connecting some dots. But I do want to share this video with y'all on Instagram, just to kind of show us. I think a lot of times we hear about inflation, but we don't really understand how it's impacting us. So just wanted to share this video with y'all. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Hold on, let me make sure that it's shown.
Sick. I feel like I'm going to be sick. I just looked through my Walmart history, and I found this Walmart order from 2 years ago for the whole month worth of groceries. 45 items cost $126. A whole month of groceries just for me, basically. But I did notice this reorder all button, and I wanted to see how much it would cost now. Now, this order of 45 items for 1 month would have cost $414. That is 4 times more. How the fuck? How? What? I feel like I'm going to be sick. I just looked through my Walmart history.
4 times the amount since 2022. Is that not insane? I don't know how we're surviving out here, man. There's gotta be a crash coming soon. I don't know. Figure out a way to get some cash so you could take advantage of this crash when it comes, because I think it's gonna come in the housing market. I think it's gonna come in commercial real estate. It may already be happening in commercial real estate, but something is coming. Something is coming. And hopefully we can put ourselves in a position to where we don't have to suffer from these situations that occur. But like with any other chaotic situation, there's an opportunity. So hopefully we can figure out a way to, I don't know, take advantage of some bad situations, because they're going to come. They're going to cycle through. It just is what it is. But hopefully we can move to a place where we're in a position to capitalize on it, because that's how the rich continue to be rich and be wealthy. When things are hectic, when things are chaotic, when people think that this crashed and that crashed, yeah, that's when everybody's getting scared, while the people with the money, that's when they're investing. That's when they're investing. That's when most of the wealth is transferred or created or built upon. All right, one more video, and then we're gonna get out of here. So this is from, I believe this is it a pre-K class, kindergarten class? Look at this kindergarten class in China. I was impressed. Hold on. Yeah. I don't know, man. I know we like to think of ourselves as the greatest country in the world, but when you look at a lot of what these other kids are doing in schools, whether it's from a physical standpoint, I didn't see too much obesity in that clip. From a physical standpoint to a mental standpoint, you go to these other countries, these kids they're creating geniuses. Meanwhile, you go to our inner cities and none of the kids can read. Like, none of the kids can read, literally, at their reading level. So just something for us to think about, for us to consider, and for us to push ourselves, whether we're adults, whether we're much older, whether we're younger, but for us to constantly challenge ourselves and to raise our standards. So therefore, our kids will have those standards as well. Our teachers will have those standards. Our community, it'll be across the board. It says a lot when kids can't read, and it says a lot on the education system, but it also says a lot based on what the kids are learning at home. I understand if I send my kid to a school, then it's a reasonable expectation to think that they're going to come back learning how to read. But I also understand that if they're not learning somewhere, then that is my responsibility, that I am obligated to then take on more of a role in order to make sure that they can read. Because a kid that can't read, in my opinion, that's setting up, especially a young boy and a young woman, it's setting young boys and young women up for maybe issues and trouble in different areas just by not being competent individuals. It limits a lot of the opportunities just across the board. So that's what I wanted to share with y'all. So let's all kind of take on that role and responsibility of increasing the standards in our own lives. So therefore, the people that we obviously influence and the people that follow us will take heed and do the same. Let's pressure people with our standards. That's what this is about. That's real influence. Pressuring people by how we lead by our example. Let the way that we move in life be an example to the younger people, not just what we tell them, but let our actions actually be the example. So we're going to wrap it up. I had a couple things. Obviously, I always pack the show to the point where it's like, we're probably not going to finish everything. But it is what it is. I'd rather do that than have nothing for us to talk about. But let's wrap it up. It's Friday. Look, we set the intentions for the beginning of the week to make this our greatest week ever. Hopefully, we still got a shot. Hopefully, we're still in the game. And if we still are in the game, then let's just make this Friday an amazing Friday. So that way we can, but when the weekend starts, look back and like, what did Nip say? With sweat dripping down your forehead because the mission was hard. He's some lyrics. Y'all know I'm a Nipsey fan. He said at the end of the fight, you lift up a cigar with sweat drip. That's how we want to be able to celebrate the weekend properly based on the work that we put in throughout the week. All right. So we want to celebrate, hopefully spend some time with your family and loved ones. Be around some good energy, get outside, move around, be active, do all the things that we know we need to do in order to be the best versions of ourselves. So before we leave, we, of course, will do our 30 to 45 seconds of meditation, visualization, manifesting. Close your eyes if you're in a safe place. Do some breathing exercises, whatever you need to do. to kind of just disconnect and get your mind right. So therefore, we're going into the rest of Friday with the right attitude. So 30 to 45 seconds. Let's go. All right. Hi, appreciate y'all. Y'all know what it is. Oh man, appreciate that. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Never forget, brother. Appreciate you. Great stream, 10 out of 10. Appreciate you. Hopefully you tap back in. We appreciate all the people that join and haven't been here before. We do the show, our set shows, the scheduled shows are Monday and Friday at 8 a.m. And then we on Wednesday, it can kind of go back and forth between AM and PM, but most of the time that's when we do our wind down. So that's going to be in the evening at 9 p.m. So tap in with us. This is a typical show. We just have conversations. That's what it's always about. Just having conversations, bringing people together, being honest, being direct, but also being open to, new perspectives and a new understanding. So y'all know what it is. We're here to elevate on purpose. That's purpose, both from an intentional standpoint, as well as just putting in the work, like we talked about earlier, raising our standards in order to align ourselves with the person we need to become in order to make the impact in our communities, in our families, in our tribes that we need now more than ever. Onward and upward, strength and honor. Get to that bag, man. Get to that bag. Whatever you're walking along in your purposeful path, that's what getting to the bag is to us. So whatever you decide to put in that bag, that's on you. What's in my bag? Health, wealth, integrity, peace, love, and happiness. And on that note, I'll see y'all soon. Check out the shows. Please like before you leave. So if you're here, like. It's going to help with the algorithm, and maybe even share the chat. Maybe even share with a group chat or share on social media. Share with your group if you think that they would enjoy the stream. And check out some of our other shows as well. And subscribe, of course. And on that note, I'll see y'all soon. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Ew.